think I need a fan. Might have to turn on the AC. Getting a little heated up in here, but I guess it's a good thing that we're moving to Icebox. Things can hopefully cool down a bit, but at the same point in time, do we really want them to? This is Valorant Challengers Stage 1, Week 2. My name is Bach. Joining me on the broadcast is Tanner Metro. We just watched 100 Thieves go to overtime against G and then run it back again. Double OT victory, 15-13, an incredible first map. And now I'm kind of worried that the next map, how can you possibly follow up that performance with something as equally entertaining?
Yeah, and on a map that I think what does kind of help for the performance side of things is Icebox kind of plays out, not necessarily a whole lot like Haven, but you've got a couple of avenues of approach. In this one, B being the main avenue that nobody uses. And on Icebox, mid is typically where we don't see anybody play. So I'm hoping that the mid play in Icebox give us some spiciness. And if you're looking at this replay package, I would hope that it's just as hard to tell who won that series as it was for us to tell who is going to win, because it was just back and forth. You see the highlight reels from all the players, and that right there was just one of the many saves or clutches there from Hiko. Kusta getting some of his own, and Sean from downtown. It was, man, Haven, I'm sweating right now again. I wiped all the sweat off. I'm sweating again watching the replays, Bach.
You can see there was that play I was talking about before where Steel was looking for the cyber cage, trying to look down to go ahead and trigger it. That's something that I think Steel does really well. Steel will utilize cyber cages to kind of play off of them and get creative with positioning. And that's what allows him to do what he does best. Even though that first map wasn't necessarily one of his greatest performances, he picked it up when necessary, especially in that final round to close things out for 100 Thieves. Now we move over to Icebox. And one of the things that's interesting, right? So map 1, Haven, a map that plays very heavily towards people who like to lurk. So we saw Kusta doing that very aggressively, and at times we saw even Nitro doing it for 100 Thieves. We saw a couple players kind of cycling into that role because who doesn't like to lurk? It's an easy way to pick up kills. But the nature of the map allows you to find openings with those lurks. That's not going to be the same for Icebox. Icebox doesn't quite work that way. Sure, you can have that lurking player, but it's not exactly the same. And one of the things that's going to be really interesting for me is the agent composition.
Yep. Who
Who ends up taking on what role? Because whenever we watch teams play on Icebox, we see a lot of switch-ups. I'm not surprised to see Steel go back to Killjoy, though. I am a little bit more surprised to see Kusta not going to Killjoy and sticking with Cypher.
Yeah, that has been something that I've kind of taken note of as a whole, and I don't think there's been very many instances as I kind of creep on through. Very few. I think it's only on Ascent. But one of the biggest things I thought was Kusta on Cypher. Kusta is new to Valorant. It's been since basically the VCT that this player has, started to kind of come into a certain role. And not to say it's any harder or easier, but you have a whole lot to learn. Whereas Counter-Strike, there's a lot to learn, but at the very least, your player or your character, it's pretty stagnant. Now in this one, I think they keep him on the Cypher just because it's comfortable. It is also interesting, and one of few teams that doesn't run the Sage here on Icebox, which not so many plays can be made, whether you're walling off tube, whether you're, finding a plant or finding a defuse. And we saw it just in the last series. Sure, 100 Thieves lost to LG, but Asuna, very proficient. And you can see that they've put the time in on this agent or this player to be able to clutch up in certain rounds. And I mean, clutch is the name of the game. That's what's going to separate and finally have somebody really come out on top. Because again, I think both these teams still riding that high, the very close matchup that we saw in the last.
I don't particularly care for that free cam path that we saw at the beginning, pushing us out into the ice flows. Come on, I know I'm a boomer, but I don't think it's my time to go just yet. Into the pistol round we go. You can see an aggressive play for GEN.G. He's got to be careful. Are they going to check this corner? He needs some help from his teammates far away. Doesn't get it. So now GEN.G stuck in a bad spot. Not getting that kill is actually huge. Not downing that Owl drone faster means that instead of maybe getting an opening out of GEN.G, he's hung out to dry. And now they've got this C site. There's another utilization for the wall. It actually goes into the tube and cuts that one in half. Dicey goes top rope and able to find one with the Frenzy. Again, this is pre-nerf, so that's why the Frenzy is so prominent here in this pistol round. as it comes down to Kusta and Kusta only. And despite his heroics from map 1, not really going to be able to fight his way out of that one. 100 Thieves do pick up the pistol round.
And it was a snowballing round there for 100 Thieves. The drone, you kind of spoke about it previously, not getting taken down means that GEN.G's position no longer safe. A slow orb on top of it. And I think this was another great round to show how strong the Sage can be. It was a slow orb to make sure that that Omen doesn't get away. And although a less expensive Frenzy, Omen doesn't typically have that shrouded step, so there's nowhere to go. Then a huge wall, which it doesn't get any better than that on the pistol round. The heal on top of it all to keep his team nice and healthy. It was Dicey who received that. And now we are on that pre-patch, as we've been harping on here. At least have I been harping on. And it's going to be an eco or spy coming up. And Steel actually opting once more into the Sheriff, this time being punished for it.
Asuna barely gets away after picking off GEN.G again. A similar setup here that we've seen in previous rounds following the pistol. A lot of force. So that's going to show itself in basically stingers for both sides, which is the most peculiar part of the way that this early game economy works out. And again, we talked about kind of that limited potential for Lurk, but we've still got Dicey, who's anchored currently over on A, but they haven't really made a move yet towards B. It's all going to come down to timing because you've got this flank play coming in from mid. So you've got two players potentially flanking, whereas you've still got Dicey on A. So if they were to decide to back off, which it doesn't look like they will, there's potential here. That's a big nade from Sean. That stops the spike, and now it initiates the movement from that player who's over on A. But it's too late. You've already got the flank coming in from Kusta and from Huynh. So Dicey's play does not work out well at all. The camera in mid is going to give away his position as well. The round is over. This is a great response from Gen.G, and they're basically returning the favor because that happened a lot to them in that first map with 100 Thieves, constantly picking up those force buy wins.
Yeah, it was Gen.G picking up both of the pistol rounds. Then 100 Thieves were forced to battle back in those force-ups. This time Gen.G able to do it, and Dicey just going to try and hang on to the Spectre here in this one. But again, we find ourselves in this particular situation of going back and forth. Sure, it's nice and early, but I think what we're going to start seeing in the future once those changes finally come through is when you win the pistol, you're probably going to win the next. The opposition is going to be forced into actually saving unless they go crazy with the Bucky, which I think might be, the next gun to be touched up. Now we find ourselves once more in a force buy. 100 Thieves going to try and battle back from this one. And the economy for Gen.G looking good. So this is their bonus round after winning that force.
Deep shock dart coming in there. That one lands inside Kitchen at the top of 2. There's no one present. Oh, Steel barely survives. Actually has to even be careful with the fall off. Down to 1 HP, but the beauty of playing with the Sage, obviously, he'll get a heal and get that health pumped back up. It'll go about 75%-ish. So that'll get him up pretty decently. But still lacking armor, obviously, as they start working their way towards long yet again. You've got Dicey playing in mid with only the SMG faced off against the other side. So it's a battle that could very well favor him. Mikhail also low on armor, still locking down this position on A. You've only got one player playing A defense, and they have to be careful. It's Kusta, who's getting dangerously close. Has to watch out for the owl drone coming through. Will take the dart and pop the cage as he escapes to the backside of sight. And then the jig is up. They're going to be moving into this A site to try and take control and get a spike policeman out of it.
And you don't have a whole lot of time to work with here as Mikhail finds one onto Dicey. That's the stinger that he's been hanging on to. Nitro able to trade one back. The help of Asuna to find some damage on the back of the site. Gen.G staying nice and healthy only for a moment. The Vandal in the hands of Steel and a Guardian for Hiko. This force, it's gone way past stingers. It's a Vandal and a Guardian, and it's all up to GEN.G here, who needs to try and do something heroic. A res now available for Asuna. What better than put your duelist on it, have him frag out and get that res nice and early for you. And 100 Thieves looking to battle back here. I think best bet for GEN.G is probably just hang on to this. You have quite a bit of credits to go into the next, but no real reason to hand this one over for free. He looks to push on up. The wall is there. The turret going to spot him out, and I do believe we should be seeing that save. And the back and forth continues, although there was a bit of a break in the back and forth on Haven, and 100 Thieves were able to grab it. We jump an Icebox, and we just get right back to it.
Two teams that are gridlocked as they fight again for control of the scoreboard. It started here with Steel, who almost dropped in that fight down to just 1 HP. And Steel ends up being a huge piece of that round. Hiko hits a shot on a jumping target with the Guardian. We've seen Hiko favor the Guardian over the SMGs. And it hasn't always worked, but when it does, it's just so satisfying to watch those shots come through straight to the skull. Here, Quinn's going to be rocking the op, unmatched by the side of 100 Thieves. So you've got Quinn currently sitting up top in the tube at the top of ropes. Not spotted, I don't believe, by the drone. As Hiko leaps off to send a recon dart out yet again, Quinn can stay in this position and it might net early success. Do they spot him through the wall? That's what he's got to be careful of. The updraft is in. Nice shot and a tailwind to get away. The dart's going to give away the position as well, and that's Kusta converting onto Asuna. Just like that, Gen.G's got control of the round.
And Kusta opting into using that wall, maybe just positioning as he finally falls down, but not before finding one more, but was able to get up top, get some elevation, and find that kill onto Asuna, who was spotted out. And once more, we're back to the clutching ways here of the Omens. It was GEN.G in the last. Now Nitro, who has to come up huge, has a good amount of credits, so can look to hang on to this one. But again, it's maybe not a gun that you want to hand over. And what could have been a lower economy buy, although an operator here.
30 seconds left.
Phantom in the hands of GEN.G still, as he's able to hang on to that one in the last. Nitro just looking to send it. As the credits, 1v4. This is for the highlight reel. Should he be able to get it? The recon bolt not actually going to spot him out there. But that spike, oh, that's the op down. Maybe he can do a bit more damage on the back end. The smoke goes through. Now the plant finally to come down, but GEN.G sits him down, and hopefully somebody can hit that jump to grab that operator. And okay, they did get it. I thought maybe he missed it there. So still up in hand for Gen.G. This time around, we're seeing Quinn get so much more value. The operator on Haven, outside of overtime, felt very lackluster. And obviously, it comes through when it matters the most, and it was for Dicey. But a huge kill to stop that push onto A. And if we're looking at playbooks here, Bach, I don't know how much of a playbook there is. It's either let's just push B really fast or let's push A, right? There's no real mid play coming out from 100 Thieves. There's not a whole lot of options, and I feel like a lot of teams default to just doing that same thing. Push A bunch of times or push B a bunch of times, and it's starting to get punished.
Yeah, that has been something we've seen from a lot of teams, is basically just defaulting to running up A. Okay. Nitro is able to catch up to Quinn and totally catches him off guard. That's a big opening kill. Now they do drop Dicey in the meantime, but that's quite a way to start things off on the round. Steel is in position with the Sheriff, has to be careful. The Boombot's going to give away the position. Looking to line up the shots. Somehow is still alive. Not sure how. Tucks into the corner. More damage being dealt as Asuna now arrives with some support. And from distance, Asuna is going to get 3 kills on the round. It's down to just one remaining player in Nitro with the scooped up op. Able to get another kill on the round. It's going to be 3-2 in favor of 100 Thieves.
Last 5 rounds, 1 for 1, going back and forth. And to kick things off right here, that close angle looked like Quinn maybe de-scoping just at the last second as Nitro pushed on up to get it. And then Asuna doing what Asuna does best, able to hang on to the res. So still having that in his back pocket for when it does get dire. And in that round, they completely make me eat my words, Bach. They push up to mid, they wall it off nice and deep so they can not only push through tube, but Nitro getting that kill down B long means they have a really nice split, which is the best way on any map to play any site. 100 Thieves really showing off here a bit of that playbook. I believe we saw that play once against LG, and now it's going to be a bit more of an aggressive stance out towards tube. Gen.G not looking to give that one up again.
Gen.G getting aggressive. There is a turret down, but it can't spot them because of that smoke that's down. The spike scooped up in spawn. Shifting hands currently to the Sage. Nitro again, trying to make space. He's been pivotal for this team. Call him Mr. Multi-Kill, because it seems like that's just what he does. Nitro is able to port into the backside of sight, but it's actually a check. So he puts out feelers, didn't really see too much, not sure he spotted that player up top. This is that incredible angle, it's so incredibly punishing. You can see the spam coming through in response, but it's too late. Steel's able to drop Mikael, getting some shots to the legs and body. And they've got 4 ults currently here on 100 Thieves, with a man advantage, no less. This will be a very difficult retake for Gen.G.
You should run.
Nitro has snuck past literally everything over towards that B site. As the lockdown gets used, Asuna able to find a kill here. 100 Thieves should be able to close things out. There it is, the flank on the way through, and they're just all corralled. They're sheepdogged on in for Nitro to pick up a couple. G.E.N.G finds himself in a 1v5, not a very winnable one. Once more looking to hang on to that Phantom, and Nitro very close to spotting out maybe the top of that hood or a barrel here. Kind of sniffing out where G.E.N.G could be playing, trying to take the rifle away. And 2 seconds left. Steel's gonna peek. G.E.N.G's able to find the kill, but Nitro will take it away. And that hurts because at the very least, you may have had a hero rifle. Now you're 2,400 credits across the board. And Mikael, his toes aren't feeling too good after that one.
Nitro was the big piece of this round, and we've said that before. We even said it at the beginning of this round, Mr. Multi-Kill. It feels like that's just what he does. And he's been so incredibly successful for 100 Thieves, especially in that lurk role, and definitely so here. 9-3 currently. He found a big opener on the B site just a few rounds ago, taking out Quinn, who had an op in an aggressive position by just hitting him with the drive-by. And here it'll be Asuna who kicks things off, playing in an obscure role that we don't typically see him in, playing as a support, not a duelist, as Sage, but it doesn't seem to be hurting him all that much. The Battle Sage role catered to him, it seems, as again, 100 Thieves have a player advantage, make it 2. Nice shot from Dicey as well, catching G.E.N.G, who tries to leap around the corner, doesn't work out so well for them. And now 100 Thieves is starting to spread the gap. Where the last map was very close, a back and forth battle, it seems like 100 Thieves is starting to click on this attacking side.
They found my wire. Cage triggered.
Recon bolt to the back of sight. There's just not a whole lot that you can expect. They do hear Asuna pushing through. It's the shorty to take the weapon away. Now it's all up to Mikael. Stinger in hand. Stomping into forcing up here. Full utility, just about. Just needs to buy one of those shock darts. So going into that next round, Sova not hurting too bad and forcing up in that last. But if you look across the board for 100 Thieves, not only are they starting to find round wins, they're starting to string them together, but the ultimate's still online here. Steel obviously not having that lockdown, having using it in the last, but Hunter's Fury available. The knives are available. Asuna still sitting on that res. And 100 Thieves not giving up anything here. They say, hey, if Mikael is looking to clutch on this A site, we're going to take it over to B. We're going to hang out here for a moment. And he's able to find a weapon. So Mikael, not too sad about it as a whole. And I would imagine, no, not even going to go for the save. I thought maybe looking to play safe, but just going to be taken down. Has 1,300 credits in his pocket. So that loss bonus, that full loss bonus, now at this point, allow them to buy. But Gen.G, I mean, they're working with crumbs if they lose this round.
One of the things that's made 100 Thieves really fun to watch on this too is that pace change, that the ability to read Gen.G and catch them off guard with some fast plays. We saw it the last time we saw the op in play from Quinn, and I worry that that could happen again with Nitro playing that B long position so incredibly well. But it does look like this time they're going to be moving more towards mid. So you will have one playing on long B. That's going to be G.E.N.G, who's currently over in the cubby. And Quinn's on A site this time with the op, where he'll be facing off against Dicey. And he's currently set up to watch only a wide swing from Dicey's position. Goes up top, looking to spot potentially players leaning in. But again, it will be Nitro, who's kind of the tip of the spear over on the B site. G.E.N.G has to be careful as the drone will go over the top and give away his position. They haven't landed a dart just yet, but now they will. And now that's the ult coming out as well from Hiko. First pulse off the money. Somehow he's dodging these ult pops, but it's okay because Asuna is there. Meanwhile, we've got Steel currently lurking in mid with the turret catching one coming down from Tube. Mikael trying to get into position in time to maybe spot out one player, but Dicey's just too quick with the operator. And the round is very likely lost here. It's a 5-on-3. They've still got Res, and they've also got the Jet ult. Now, there is a Showstopper and Neural Theft available for Gen.G, but they've got no space. They've got no room to move onto this site. And with that kill coming through onto Kusta, the round is all but lost. 100 Thieves, they look so good on this attacking side right now.
That's exactly where I was headed with it. They're not giving you talked about the change in momentum, the change in speed, the way they're bouncing around, and Gen.G have zero idea how to stop this. They don't know how to respond. I think one of the bigger things that we usually see is you put the Cypher in one spot and you say, hey, you play over towards A, you've got your cam, you've got your cages and your trap wires, all that stuff. And it looked like they were going to do that over towards B to, at the very least, spot out a push, spot out Nitro trying to lurk. And then in the last couple of rounds, Kusta's been all over the place. He was B, and he went over to A, and now last round he had everything set up towards mid. They just cannot get a read on this 100 Thieves roster. Now, if the game continues to go like this, I feel like we have to give a bit of a shout out to LG for being able to beat this 100 Thieves team. That does seem so fluid on a map that, I was not expecting them to look this fluid against this Gen.G squad.
I think it was a massive mistake from Gen.G to not play a Sage here. I mean, you look at the successful compositions on this map, and I feel like Sage is just so well catered to the map, and we've seen that from other teams, how well Sage has worked out for them. The lack of it here could prove to be incredibly problematic, not just here on the attack, or the defense, excuse me, but also on the attack. As we've seen that Sage wall work out quite nicely for 100 Thieves. The force buy is in from Gen.G. Stingers, shotguns, sheriffs, the works. I guess we should say the light buy, as their money is starting to get to a point where they have like a decent amount of loss bonus. So after this, they will be able to afford a strong buy. But even when they've had that strong buy, it hasn't looked good for them. They've been picked apart early in the round. This is probably one of the slowest rounds we've seen. Sure, 100 Thieves has ticked down to the final seconds on the plants, but usually we've seen some bloodshed by this point. So they're going to try to get on the site. The wall's going to come through. This is an opportunity to take down Asuna as there's a player close on site. But no, they didn't pounce. They didn't take advantage. And now the spike's been planted and everything's falling apart. You've still got a player on the other side. Nitro is decimating as he always does. The nade comes through and the round is looking incredibly promising as the damage that was dealt even there to Hiko is mitigated by him falling off. They do lose one, but 4 players survive the round, and 100 Thieves continue to look dominant here on this attacking side.
And another instance of 100 Thieves keeping Gen.G guessing. The last time they played it just about that slow, they stormed onto the site, they slapped down the lockdown. You think you can make a play off the back end if you're Gen.G, but Nitro had crept all the way around and had that flank and found a double kill on the way out. So when you play the round again like that, you constantly have that mentality or that mind game. You have to be watching the flank. You have to be watching the flank. And a lot of that is on Kusta's shoulders to be able to set up the utility. And there's just too much to do it here on Icebox. So 100 Thieves, once more, looking incredibly polished. And it was available in round 3. Now we get it in round 10 as a couple of kills traded back and forth with the res. Not going to mean a whole lot. But even in this 4v4, a spike down over towards A, I can't help but think 100 Thieves have this one in the bag. Dicey postured aggressively. Sure, the last time we saw this, he was the last one standing. They have a whole lot more going in their favor this time around.
That was actually a huge res because it was an even bigger pickup early on from Quinn to take Nitro out of the equation. And we talked about how pivotal Nitro has been at times. He goes for the ult onto the site, does give away their position. We see a counter ult come out from Gimon, who sneaks behind enemy lines, somehow survives long enough as Hiko is trying to find a way to tiptoe out onto that ledge. But by the time he gets there, Gimon is able to fire. It's an even 3-on-3. But with Nitro's position in mid, they just have to wait. They have to allow Nitro to come in on this backstab. They have to make noise to keep them honest. There's the knives coming out, but they didn't wait long enough, not patient enough for Nitro's lurk. Now everything falls down and falls apart. So Gen.G scoop up the round victory. I thought for a second we were going to see a little bit more patience there from 100 Thieves to allow that lurk play, because you actually looked, they were all looking at main. They were not watching the flank. They weren't looking towards Boiler. And Nitro had an incredible opportunity to find multiple kills, as he always does, but it falls apart. And ultimately, it's Gen.G's round to take.
With Gen.G back on the board, too, it leads me to believe that we should be seeing a couple more rounds following suit. Valorant being heavily momentum-based. Unfortunately, not enough in the last few rounds to damage the economy. 100 Thieves still sitting nice and pretty as they play out towards trying to peek a little bit. Win. Not gonna find that shot, but GEN.G is here this time around. The kill gonna be traded right back, and Win now in a bad spot. 30 HP, and this Jet is in a very bad way as 100 Thieves go back their rushing ways, trying to storm onto this B site. Now, Win, you know you're in the smoke, buddy. He's got to find a way out. He does not have the dash. Now he's on 11 HP. He's slowed, and he does not have a whole lot. It's Hiko with the shock dart to sit him down. And 100 Thieves, they try to go to their playbook. They try to make the play a couple of times. It doesn't work, so they flip the page, and they start doing it differently this time around. But Gen.G starting to battle back here, finding some major kills, stopping the spike plant. But at the end of the day, it all just has not been enough. Sean able to find one, looking for a second. The paranoia, the snipe, and Dicey to close it out. That one, again, the last round, I thought maybe some momentum going over to Gen.G. When you take a deeper dive into it, it was 100 Thieves who kind of threw the round away, playing too aggressive while Nitro was still on the flank. Everything would have been nice and dandy for 100 Thieves. In this one, they flip to another page. They play a bit more aggressively, and somehow, some way, it still works.
It was unfortunate for Win. So the dart comes through. He tries to smoke himself off. A pulse comes in that gives us a position away before the smoke. So instead of smoking off the dart, he smokes himself off, as he has no idea where that dart landed and doesn't really have the time to deal with it. One of the things we've seen from 100 Thieves is very easy control of Long B. Whether it's the wall boost coming in from Asuna to get up into position, which we haven't really seen a whole lot of, or it's Nitro porting up into that position and going for a split take that overwhelms the op whenever they can get it, which is also not something we've seen a whole lot of. The money has not been good for Gen.G, so they haven't really been able to afford those luxuries. And one of the biggest problems for them is dealing with that wall. Sure, in that last round, they destroyed the wall and stopped the plant, but at that point, it was still a 2-on-4, and it came down to a 1-on-3. So ultimately, it was water under the bridge. It didn't really matter that they stopped that plant because they didn't have the resources to continue fighting in the round.
Shadows traveling.
It's a slower approach towards B. And this one, the spike. Now, since having creeped up, it is just going to be a fake. And a slow one to GEN.G, but the knives from downtown. Win. To stop the push momentarily. Some way, somehow, if Asuna could get over there, there is another res available. And that is the best part about having your battle sage. There's the res to come through. It's Hiko from downtown. Find a tag onto one. GEN.G goes good for another. Onto Asuna. Had an advantageous position for a moment. Should be given up, but Gen.G, they're starting to find these kills. They're trickling on through, but they're traded right back. Eagle's able to get another. Nitro goes into the smoke, and there he is, Mr. Multi-Kill. This is their Killjoy ultimate, so they're A-OK, just hanging on out there, both detained. And GEN.G, you are not long for this world.
Finally spotted out in the end, too. So it will be a 9-3 first half, completely different score line from map number 1. We're going to throw things to a quick halftime break, and hopefully Gen.G will thaw off a bit and pick up the score in the second half. Stay tuned. Well, the first half didn't exactly mirror what we saw in map number 1 with a close back and forth volley. We thought we were going to get that early on, Tanner. We saw the back and forth in those first 5 rounds, but from then on it was mostly 100 Thieves with a little blip in there from Gen.G. We'll see if they can wake up here on the attacking side, but with dual Sentinels on the opposite side, a Sage and a Killjoy, it's going to be quite difficult for Gen.G to crack past the defense.
Yeah, and the Sentinel difference in Kusta on the Cypher, Steel on the Killjoy. There's not a whole lot of trips that you can put down in your spawn as they jump on to the site. Maybe we'll see something aggressive coming out from Kusta's. Kills come through, kills traded back and forth. GEN.G able to find another, so now 100 Thieves starting to get whittled down, and it's Steel on the flank and the Sage to try and heal and get away. Now it's all up to Steel in a 1v4, and we were talking about it before we hopped on after that break. This was a round that Gen.G needed to win, and they do just that.
Gotta pick things up in the pistol. Gotta try to drive forward with that, though. They cannot lose to another stinger buy from 100 Thieves. Those rounds have been so good from 100 Thieves, whether they were on the attack or the defense. And it's a little bit scary when you're dealing with a team with the firepower that they've got. Now, the interesting thing is their duelist Dicey, 7-7. It's actually the Sentinel play of Asuna, who usually plays a duelist as well, who's sitting at the top of the scoreboard alongside Nitro. What do they decide to do? They go for a heavy A stack with the defense. And then all they've got elsewhere is Steel in mid, who's currently coming down tube, going to spot one out in mid, do some damage, and then likely back off. So this setup could potentially force them in. It all depends on Kusta, who's currently lurking over towards B. If Kusta can get the information that they're not playing towards B, it'll be enough to pull them away and guarantee the plant elsewhere on the map.
Kusta trying to fill those Nitro shoes, as we saw 100 Thieves on the attacking side. So again, that lurk towards B, pretty big to get some information. Hey, we're safe up to this far. Unfortunately, there's still some utility there, and still Nitro still hanging out in the area. So nothing comes free here. No such thing as a free site against this 100 Thieves roster. The turret can be taken down. Steel now going to be privy to this as Kusta finds that kill. Nitro, though, taking a page out of Steel's book with that Bucky. Will be traded, and it is going to be a 3v4 retake. The remaining 100 Thieves coming from that A site. Icy. Aggressive posture, gonna find that kill. The right-click 3-round burst from the Stinger is just too strong. Now things are even for a moment. 100 Thieves starting to battle back here. And what does it matter if you won the pistol? Win has to go huge here in the next round. Bach, you called it. You said they have to win this one. And instead, it's 100 Thieves to steal it away and to go to double digits.
Gen.G just cannot anti-eco for their lives. Now, that said, it's not really fair to call this an anti-eco, given that the opposition has basically the same guns as you. You know, you're facing off against Stingers with Stingers, but it feels like this happens way too frequently with them. They have struggled so much so against 100 Thieves in this series. But you can see what it does to the buy coming into this next round. You've got some Vandals in play alongside Stingers, so there's still a decent bit of firepower here for Gen.G, whereas 100 Thieves is coming into this one with kind of a mix, with some shotguns still in play alongside some Stingers and some rifle work as well, one of which is going to be the Bulldog for Dicey. Dicey might just be able to line this one up. Yeah, that's almost an easy kill as the slow peek comes in from Kusta. The SMG is successful for Win. You've got Asuna, who's sitting on the other side of the wall. As the wall gets broken and a slow orb goes down, a self-heal will come through to bring him back up to full HP. The dart will give away positions, and again, it is 100 Thieves who are in the control position. Nice tap shots coming out from GEN.G to at least make things a little bit more manageable. But even look at how much of a nuisance Asuna is being with just a Stinger, putting GEN.G down to 13 HP, and now they're backing off and licking their wounds, looking for an opportunity elsewhere potentially.
There is not a whole lot to be found either. It's low HP. Again, a Sageless comp means you have no heals. A Skyless comp means you have no heals. There's not a whole lot right now in favor outside of the arsenal, but it's going to take incredible one taps, right? You have the range. That Bucky might even take Gimon down at range. We'll have to see how Hiko decides to play that one. But as they push on, it gets a lot more scary. Hiko almost finding some contact area, is going to swap on over. There's the shot coming down the Bucky just enough. Sentence Gimon to death. Now Mikhail running out of time. It's the Bucky once more. 100 Thieves, they win the eco, or the thrifty buy in the next, and then they hang on to the same weapons they had. The bonus so strong with the Stingers, with the Bucky. And I don't know what Gen.G can do from here. You either save in this one and play for overtime, where you have to win 8 in a row, or you force up and you hope that the pre-patch Stinger is going to be enough. And unfortunately, like we've seen in the last couple of rounds, it really hasn't been.
I mean, I think you have to. I think you just don't really have a choice. So they go for the force. You see what it means. I mean, Gimon actually with a armorless Vandal, no less. But what they're going to do that's a little bit different is they're going to play this one fast. So they're just going to dive bomb the site. And they might actually be able to get some openings here, one of which is with Kusta, but you've also got the ult up, and the knives are out. It doesn't necessarily work so well as Nitro was able to do what Nitro does best, but in the meantime, that allowed Huynh to get into position to at least trade that kill out. There's some rifles picked up here, and there's a fighting chance for Gen.G off the back of this. Now, Huynh knows better than to try to take out the drone with the knives, favoring that instead. Hiko's still on the shotgun, diving around, doing a deer hunter impersonation, and it's working out quite nicely for him. You're down to just one remaining member of Gen.G again. Mikhail cannot fight his way out of it. So despite the fact that the buy coming in from 100 Thieves still had shotguns into it, that shotgun ends up being a huge piece of it. 100 Thieves are now on 12 rounds. Gen.G has to fight for overtime, and you talked about it coming into this round. Do you save or force and fight for OT? Well, they forced and left enough to have enough to buy here to fight for OT, but it's still going to be light.
It's definitely not what you would hope for with your backs against the wall here. And man, those replays, this entire game has really felt like not only a step into or a peek inside the minds of 100 Thieves, but just a 100 Thieves highlight reel. And a lot of it, a Nitro highlight reel. Obviously, Asuna having some good rounds. Hiko coming up clutch there with the Bucky, which isn't and hasn't been touched here in the next couple of patches. So we might see that one be a menace, and NA start to take a page out of some of these other regions book. Like to hang on to the Bucky. With your backs against the wall, you're already down a member. The spike headed towards B, and you have a couple ultimates to use. The only problem here in this one, Bach, is the Hunter's Fury could be blind, and you can try and get some info or play for the post plant. But Kusta, to find the neural theft, it's going to take a Herculean effort. Has to do something crazy. Not only that, but has to creep up to that body and then get that info. It's definitely an uphill battle, and Huynh making things look a bit more doable, but Nitro is there to trade it back. And we know that Nitro, he's Mr. Multi-Kill, so I would imagine that's not the last kill we see in this round.
One thing they did really good, though, they smoked off the turret. That's what allowed them to do what they just did, because Steel was not anticipating that play being possible because the turret was in that position. Now the res comes through, so Steel is brought back into the fold. Ult's being popped across the board. Gimon tries to escape and get into a better position with his ult, but again, it's a numbers advantage here for 100 Thieves, and it's all down to the last remaining player. It's Kusta, who's getting pushed from Kitchen. The Cyber Cage does not get there in time. That's 5 on the round for Nitro, as Gen.G succumb to 100 Thieves. 13-4 in map number 2, nowhere near as close as map 1. Gen.G knocked out, and it is 100 Thieves who is moving on with a fighting chance of qualifying for Masters.
Yeah, I feel like they're at the end, the ace coming through. The round made it a very anticlimactic ace for Nitro, but again, Mr. Multi-Kill coming through, closing out the pretty inevitable. I think Gen.G maybe had a chance to pick up a couple more, but 100 Thieves, they right their wrongs. They lose that map to LG. They say, hey, we're not doing that again. And they kick Gen.G out of this one. They send them to closed qualifiers 3 for challengers 3. So it's not the end of the world.
Right.
But now in that one, Gen.G, you got to go back to the drawing board. You got to figure it out. A couple of notes that I had taken was they're finding wins, but it's whenever they're playing these stronger teams, outside of a pickup on Sentinels, which feels like a team that kind of goes back and forth sometimes. It feels like they either want to turn on or they don't. But Gen.G haven't been beating the strongest teams, and we see it again here. It's a 100 Thieves. Looks kind of shaky. They lose in the first quals. They come here. They just lose to Luminosity, and then Gen.G loses to them. So there's got to be some soul searching, I think, for that team now going into that next close. And hats off to 100 Thieves. It's not going to be an easy run for them. They're one loss away from joining Gen.G in the close, and they have to now claw their way through the losers, but they're one step closer.
An important thing to point out too is that the composition that we saw from Sentinels in that Icebox match was a little bit different than what we even see from them now. We've seen obviously them change a lot of things. I've seen Sick play Sova on that map, which he did in that series when they played against Gen.G, so you could mark that as potentially a fluke. Sky and Sage, he's played a variety of roles on the map in general. So that early Gen.G victory on Icebox, I don't really know what to make of it, but in the end, Gen.G just did not have enough in the tank. They looked very weak in general in this series against 100 Thieves on that second map. The first map was so exciting, was so incredibly close. The unfortunate thing is they very likely could have won map number 1 and forced us that third map where they might have had a better fighting chance, but they fall in overtime 15-13, and then they just got obliterated. That was not even close. They were schooled on the second map, mostly by Nitro, who just picked them apart.
Both attacking and defending. One of the things that we kind of talked about going into Icebox was how hard it is to lurk. And I think a lot of that being mostly on the defensive side, where you can kind of push through B, but then you're going back through spawn and you're expecting certain things to be in certain areas, and there's a lot of angles you have to clear. Well, on the attacking side, Nitro just found a way to make it work every single time. And then when he wasn't lurking, he was such a problem that Gen.G had to be paying attention or had to be wary of the lurk the entire time. And then to jump back to the compositions, you have Kusta on the Cypher. Again, that is probably comfort. And you have Steel on the Killjoy. Obviously, the Sage is a whole nother conversation to have. But when you're on the attacking side, you're pushing up to A. You're trying to do your darndest to do that, but you also have to be wary of the flank because there's not a whole lot that your Cypher provides. Unless you throw some trips way over towards B, throw some trips towards mid, it's not that Killjoy turret that you can place down really anywhere outside of that A main area as you're starting to push on through and get the information that somebody's behind. So it definitely felt like Gen.G obviously getting outclassed on Icebox, but I think you go back to the drawing board and maybe you spice things up a little bit. You know, you're cooking bland chicken and we need some spices, we need some herbs, we need something that makes that roster pop, because we've seen them pop off multiple times in the past couple of weeks.
Well, so you talked about the agent composition and you talk about Nitro's capability to lurk. One of the things that made that a little bit easier is the lack of a Killjoy on the defense. You know, having Cypher over Killjoy, we talked about it, like the trips don't really work as well on this map like they do on some other maps. So as a result, you really don't have that like stopping power or slowing power on the opposite side of the map. So you can't really focus that heavily on the opposite side like you can with Steel, who had the turret up in second floor of Tube over on the B site, and the nano swarms down, the alarm bot in position, so that he can kind of cheat his way over towards mid and focus less on B and more on that. Now, obviously, that ultimately resulted in his demise in one round where they smoked off the turret and snuck onto the site, came in with a backstab because he was preoccupied with the fight that was going on in mid. But more often than not, having that player in that position makes it so much easier. And then also, like, that ult lockdown on this map is so incredibly good when placed right. You can force them out of the site and play off the spike very easily. There's also a lot of creative places and ways to use nano swarms. So ultimately, just a disappointing end for Gen.G's run here. But again, they aren't eliminated. And actually, they will be playing in the next closed qualifier, so they have one more opportunity. And at the same point in time, 100 Thieves, their journey's not done yet. They're not out of this. They have to keep fighting to make it into Masters, and they're going to have to run their way through the gauntlet in that lower bracket. And speaking of the lower bracket, we can go ahead and take a peek at that here in just a moment, so we can see where we're going to be going and who's going to be facing off against who next. So XSET picks up the 2-0 over FaZe, and then 100 Thieves picking up the win over Gen.G. Now they're waiting for the other games going on in the upper bracket, which we'll take a look at. Those are going to be kicking things off tomorrow. It's Sentinels versus Envy, and then IMT versus LG. I am really looking forward to that game.
Yeah, it's an IMT and LG game that the exact same game took place in the exact same spot in the last closed qualifiers, and it's LG's way to try and battle that one back against an Immortals that have been incredibly fire hot. And if you're looking at the bracket as a whole, kind of across the board, and you're thinking, well, we're gonna get some awkward things as we move to lower round 2 and the upper semis. The loser of Sentinels and Envy is not going to go down and play Exit. They're actually going to jump all the way down to play 100 Thieves. So we shouldn't see the possible Envy Exit like we saw in the first round of the quarterfinals. So if you're looking at that and you're thinking things are a little wonky, that won't be the case. So we're not going to get an immediate rematch until deeper in the bracket. And yeah, it's a comeback story for LG to try and send the Fire Hot Immortals. And then I think Sentinels still have a lot to prove, right? They're ranked #1 kind of across the board. Envy right there with them as one of the more consistent teams, but Sentinels they're hot and cold. So I think upper semis, you make it to upper finals, you're locked in for Masters. That's going to be a big one.
Well, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our sweet play of the day, powered by Mike and Ike. A big shout out to Mike and Ike, one of our sponsors here for this stage of VCT. When we take a look, it's going to be Moose's 4K clutch. Moose was popping off at times throughout this series against 100 Thieves, but this was incredible. It was a 1v3 post-plant scenario. In no way, shape, or form should he win this. And you actually heard it being said. I'm sure the comms coming out from this one are going to be not good. When the team watches this VOD back and they see how they allowed those 1v1s for Moose to clutch that, there's going to be some conversations that get a little bit heated there, because that was a huge misplay that allowed LG to stay alive in that game.
And that series, too, that's the series that sent 100 Thieves down into the losers bracket. So you win that game on bind, which 100 Thieves typically does pretty well on, or you clean up some of those mistakes that you made, right? Losing the 1v3 in the post plant, or as you're trying to defuse there. I don't know. The gap is closing. That's what it feels like as a whole. And I think bigger picture, outside of being a fan of your favorite team or your favorite player, that is something that everybody as a fan of Valorant can appreciate. Is, the top 10 is about to be really tight inside this North American region.
Well, that does wrap things up for us today, but want to quickly shout out our sponsor one more time, HyperX, who's been helping make all of this possible here on our side. You can see this beautiful mic sitting behind me, but want to talk specifically about their peripherals and also the HyperX Cloud 2 wireless. Legendary comfort goes wireless with the HyperX Cloud 2 wireless, built to be an ultra comfortable gaming headset with amazing sound. It's no wonder that it's become the preferred gaming headset for millions of gamers. Millions. That's a very large number. If you're looking to get yourself a brand new headset, go ahead and check out the offerings from HyperX. And the beauty to go wireless is something that I cannot relate to, because broadcast headsets, unfortunately, don't come in that variety. So I am tethered to my desk. But I do at least have a long cable. I can go.
Oh. Okay, well, unfortunately, Bach, he really tried to show off the headset, and he didn't make it that far. That's unfortunate. So how long was the cable again?
Yeah, that didn't really illustrate. So I guess ultimately you can see the beauty of wireless. I can't even step from outside of this small circle. I am tethered to this region of my desk. I try to step away, and ultimately I will either rip off the headset or break something in the process, because I am just a buffoon. Tanner, is there anything you'd like to say before we throw things to a close?
No, today was exciting. Game #1, obviously, that was fantastic. Back and forth, and we see why Gen.G is so strong on that map. And unfortunately, things don't go their way today. Icebox, obviously, and a nice little cool down. And I'm sure 100 Thieves appreciated that one, so they're not sweating their way through the losers. And I'm excited. The close qualifiers, again, there's so much on the line here, whether it be another $50,000 tournament in Challengers 3 or making it into Masters to then try and earn your way to Valorant Champions, and to get a whole weekend and then some because of it. And it was an absolute blast, our first time. And I don't know when we'll get to do this again, but I had a good time working with you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Guys, thank you so much for watching as well. VCT is not done yet. Stage 1, Week 2 kicks off again tomorrow at 12 Pacific. That's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you guys want to catch up on the action, we'll be diving into it then. Same place here on Nerd Street Gamers and Nerd Street Gamers 2 Twitch channels, and we hope to see you guys tomorrow. Take care.